Hope you're all doing well. This is RJ, live in the Shenandoah Valley, here in New Market Battlefield, here at New Market, Virginia. Here before me is the beautiful war memorial for those who served in the Confederacy from Albemarle County. It used to be in front of the Albemarle County Courthouse grounds in Charlottesville, Virginia. This is one of the roughly five monuments that was removed there. I'll talk about those here in just a moment. This one probably is the best case scenario of them all. We all know it should have never been removed from downtown Charlottesville, but at least it was restored, or at least it was brought to this battlefield. As you see here, it's right along Shenandoah. This is right along the edge of the main north-south interstate. You see I-81 and I-64 in the background there. Just further up this road is, a little bit further north is Woodstock. There's going to be a Southern Rock Festival actually next weekend. If you go travel up this road about an hour, 15 minutes, you'll get to Winchester, Virginia. If you went the other way, southward, you get to the next large city south of here, about 10 or 15 miles, is Harrisonburg. Say Lexington is another about hour, 15 minutes or so south of here. So speaking about this memorial right here, I saw it here right about the week after it was relocated here. Had been in storage for a little while. It had been there in front of the county courthouse building there in Charlottesville since about 1907. It had been there for well over a century. And thankfully it was brought here. It's now under the ownership of the Shenandoah Valley Battlefield Foundation. I'm a member of that organization. I'm also a member of the American Battlefield Trust. But I'm big fans of all preservation organizations, well, especially the ones that don't go woke. And Shenandoah is, I think, my favorite one. In fact, their museum is in the background. I encourage you to go there. It's a fantastic museum in the background. It's got some awesome portraits, some great displays. It's closed today, but it's fantastic. The other museum here in New Market Battlefield is the New Market Battlefield Museum just right over here, and that is owned by VMI, Virginia Military Institute. Now, I've got some more qualms with them. I think they've got a little more, definitely got more of the woke bug, but they do have that beautiful Stonewall Jackson statue that was removed from VMI, the front of VMI parade grounds in front of the building. That was relocated right over here, and they did a good job with the pedestal and putting it right out there in the front. So I appreciate that. That's awesome. It's a beautiful area through here. But right now I'm going to focus on this memorial. This one, I saw this a couple times in its original location over 5 years ago. I took photos and I took videos of it back then. I was outraged, just like I'm outraged now that it was ever removed. There was actually cannons on the side. They actually got rid of those cannons as well. Just like Fairfax did, they got rid of the cannons that were on their courthouse grounds. It seems like they can't even stand to have authentic cannons and pieces from the largest war that took place in the area. Last time I was here, right after they removed it here, this was all basically undeveloped. This has just all been plowed. It was uneven ground. There was no fencing around here at all. And they have come a long ways. They put all this fencing up in the meantime. Last time I was here, you could park down there. There was no parking area. There was no fence. I had to walk across this area, but now it's all been developed. So now you have to walk along the outskirts and come across here. And just, here's the entrance right over here. So they've come a long ways. And also, last time I was here, and this is maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago or something like that, none of these brass plates had been restored yet. And I questioned this. I kept calling them and asking, where are the brass plates that were right here? All these were missing. And I'll share these here with you soon. And it looks like they just restored them. So I'm glad to see that. Now I'm going to share this on the back side too, because this has been mostly restored in its fullness, but they did add made a big, fairly significant change, and they added this plaque right here, and it covers text on the back side. And I'll share with you what that text is that covers in just a moment. I can understand why they did cover it, though. I think they were being as respectful as they could. Because basically what they've done is they've taken this memorial that was dedicated to those from Albemarle County. Now Albemarle County doesn't even have a war memorial now for those who fought in the largest war. But they kind of purged all those memorials and monuments. They have no respect for veterans, it seems like. But they had converted it from one from that county to one that represents all the Virginians that fought on this battlefield here at New Market. And really quickly, New Market, this is one of those battlefields where the Confederacy, the defenders, the locals were outnumbered. Even though the Confederacy is outnumbered, they managed to pull off an incredible victory. And one of the most notable things was, of course, they had to pull in cadets, which is extremely rare, to pull in actual cadets from the nearby school. In fact, when General Breckinridge made that order, he said something along the lines, "Please forgive me, God forgive me, send in the cadets." He knew he was sending in young boys. So reading this right here and just going around this and sharing with you the updates on this, you can tell it looks like it was cleaned. It's in pretty good shape right now. But it says right up here, "Warriors, your valor, your devotion to duty, your fortitude under privations, teach us how to suffer and grow, lest we forget." And right here at the base is the seal of Virginia, the original seal. This is my favorite. This is the only Virginia flag I fly is the original flag, and it includes this one, which is truly sic semper tyrannis, death to tyrants. That features a warrior with the spear up, ready to take on and subjugate and conquer more tyrants, with the breast shield on, conquering tyrants, representing a king. As you see the crown, the king's crown right there. Well, the current Virginia seal, they changed it. They took off the top, and now it's exposes a breast. They turn the spear upside down. They remove the thing, and so they completely changed the meaning. So it looks a lot the same, but the very key elements are changed in the current Virginia flag. But I do fly that flag, the old original Virginia flag. I'm glad they didn't cover this up. Beautiful engraving. Part of the stonework here of the Army of Northern Virginia, the flag that was used right here, the citizen soldier flag, the flag that represented the locals who answered the call, who did their duty to serve and protect and defend their homes and their families and their homeland in America's largest war. So I'm glad that is still there. It hasn't been covered up like they did over in Silva, North Carolina. But there's a good news with Silva, North Carolina. They actually, after 4 years of having an ugly covering over the battle flag that looked kind of like that, they finally came to their senses. Rationality finally returned, and they just removed it. And so it has been restored to its original condition. I encourage you to go see that. So back to this. So it's good to see this again. The side here, the bronze. Because this was not here last time. I feared that it had been confiscated and would never been returned. So I'm glad it was. Some symbolism, once again, from the war. Now this is the part right here that was the addition. And it looks like what they added this. Now first I'll share with you what it says. In fact, erected to the memory of the sons of Virginia who served on these fields at New Market on May 13th to 15th, 1864. And you see right there, Infantry Brigadier General John Eccles, also Wharton's Brigade, unattached commands, Augusta Reserves, Rockingham Reserves, VMI Cadets, 3rd Confederate Engineers, and so forth. General John Embleton. And here it is, total Virginians present, 5,000, killed 39, wounded 495, missing 13. 5,000 killed, 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 39, wounded 495, miss Now the Union soldiers had a couple thousand more troops, about 2,000 more. So this covered up some text that basically said it was dedicated, made possible by the United Daughters of the Confederacy, to those for Albemarle County. So it represented the county and wording like that. So they covered that over and basically turned it into a memorial that represents all Virginians here. So it's no longer, they basically repurposed it. So it no longer just represents just that one county, but also now represents everybody that was on this battlefield. Now it should be, I just was at General John Eccles' grave just this morning over in Stanton, over in Thorn Rose Cemetery. I shared a live video of there. He's just an extraordinary man. He's known as a very imposing man. He's 6'4". He was there in the war all the way from the very beginning, the Battle of First Manassas, under the command of Stonewall Jackson, all the way to the very end. Later on, he helped dedicate some memorials. He was very successful. So yeah, I mentioned more about General John Eccles. His house is still on display there in Union, West Virginia. So anyway, that's the change. They added that to repurpose it and make it one for more of the new market. Here's the symbolism on this side for this bronze plaque. Pretty cool. Scabbards or sabers and a bugle. Confederate soldiers, defenders of the rights of the states. Kind of very similar to a previous Confederate memorial I just shared with you. It said, reminded all that Confederate soldiers fought in defense of their homes, their families, the principles of our founding fathers, the principles of the Declaration of Independence, the principles of the Constitution. Doing what their forefathers had done during the American Revolution. I'm trying to zoom out of this a little bit more. I'm not able to right now, unfortunately. So this memorial right here, once again, was one of the lucky ones in Charlottesville. Charlottesville is just, I call it occupied. They got a bunch of hateful leftists over there. So this one was, they voted to remove this one. On the exact, just on the corner, just a short, maybe not even 100 feet from where this stood, maybe about 80 feet or so, was the Stonewall Jackson equestrian statue. It was beautiful. That one had been there about 100 years, and they voted to remove that one as well, right before this. Now that one remains in storage. Last I heard, it was in the possession of LA Art, and they're planning on putting it on display in Los Angeles, and we all know they're going to use it for propaganda. Almost like almost like having captured a head on a stick. They just want to use it for their leftist propaganda. So that one has not been on. That monument has not been seen since. It's still in storage. It's removed for years. Nobody has seen that beautiful statue of Stonewall Jackson that used to be only about 80 feet from where this used to be on the Albemarle County Courthouse grounds in Charlottesville. Now, the other monument that was removed, of course, is that famous Robert E. Lee equestrian statue. That was just a few blocks further down. It was in Lee Plaza. That plaza was generously donated in good faith to the town. Man donated that property. He wanted to have a perpetual, not forever living monument memorial to General Robert E. Lee. They called it Lee Park. And that's how it was for 100 years. The good citizens that used to live there used to have live living Christian manger scenes during Christmas. They used to take care of that memorial. But this generation, unfortunately, took over that nice little town in Dixie and ended up removing it. And what's worse is they handed it over, knowing full well that they handed it over to the African American Heritage School over there, who from the very beginning said they were planning on melting it down. The county board knew full well that was their intent, and they passed the ownership over to them, and that's exactly what happened. Nobody in the state wanted to melt that down. So it was done in secrecy and a place that was not disclosed. And they melted it down, they gloated about it. And I swear, who could ever have any respect for people who act just like the Taliban and ISIS, melt down beautiful memorials, people who gave their all to defend that area. The honorable, legendary Robert E. Lee. To melt it down, you cannot have no respect for those people who are so disgusting and pathetic to actually melt down a beautiful memorial like that. That will never be forgotten. They have tarnished their reputation forever. They can't make society better, so they have to destroy down. They have to actually attack and destroy beautiful war memorials. I mean, how pathetic is that for the African American Historical Museum there in Charlottesville to actually melt that memorial down? It was disgusting. That will never be forgotten. That's why I will continue to share that. It should never be forgotten just how low, just how scummy that was. So that was the three that were removed, but there's also two others. One was Lewis and Clark in Sacagawea. There was a statue to those famous explorers. And believe it or not, they actually decided to remove that as well. I remember seeing that as well. I took photos of it. So I wish I had my drone at the time, but that was also removed. That one, as I understand, was maybe moved over to a park, but I'm not really absolutely certain. But just to tell you the kind of people that they are, they actually removed that and also removed the name of Meriwether Lewis from the school on the north side of Charlottesville. That's where Meriwether Lewis was born. And the people there were very proud of him. There was a communities named after him. There was streets named after him. The school Meriwether Lewis was named after him. There was communities and subdivisions named after him. And they pulled the people when they heard about that the school board wanted to rename and remove Meriwether Lewis from the school. They pulled the people, and over 85% of the people said, no, leave it alone. We're proud of Meriwether Lewis. There's historical signs there. That's where he was born, his birthplace. And the school board, those bunch of leftists, did not care about the will of the people. They voted against democracy. They voted against the will of the people. And they ended up changing the name. And so I returned there not too long ago, and it's just incredible to see that they actually purged the name, removed the name of Meriwether Lewis. So that was the other statue that was removed from Charlottesville. The other statue they removed from Charlottesville was actually by the University of Virginia, removed it. And the University of Virginia removed the statue of Roger Clark. He was a famous explorer. I didn't think you see anything wrong with that, but I mean, can you have any more respect for University of Virginia? No doubt about it. Thomas Jefferson would be rolling in his grave of just the monster he created. If he knew just how that institution would have made those people narrow-minded, anti-intellectual, shallow thinkers who would actually remove memorials to explorers, he would have been disgusted. He would have never organized and created University of Virginia, in my belief. So those are the 5 statues. So I say that because this is one of the 5 that was removed from Charlottesville. I'm just glad it found a home here, and a good home. Right here in the Shenandoah Valley. Right along, you can see this from I-81 if you look. You got to know where to look. I-81 off in the distance. It's also I-64. Right here between the 2 museums to the new Market Battlefield, one the VMI museum just right over here where Stonewall Jackson is now located, and the other museum just right over here. So thankfully this was relocated right here. Now this particular battlefield is unique for a few reasons. Again, the Union soldiers, when they're coming through this area, they wanted to just destroy the food supply of the South. And so you'll see historical signs all through this area about what they did. coming through and burning down all the farms and destroying all the crops and destroying all the sheds and everything. Not much was spared here in the Shenandoah Valley. And it's also worth noting that I hesitate to even call them Yankees, because so many of them weren't even born in the United States or in America. Many of them that came through here were foreigners who immigrated to the United States. And next thing you know, it's kind of like a scene out of Gangs of New York, where somebody hops off the boat and army officers right there say, hey, sign up, we're fighting a war. I'll tell you what, do this and we'll give you money, you get your citizenship, and we'll take care of you for a while, and go fight this war for us. And many of them just went ahead and jumped in on that. There's a historical marker right around here that talks about how many of these Union soldiers clearly were not from America. So one of them lists off the names of the different commanders of the Union Army, and it says, now these don't sound like American names, do they, for the Union soldiers? And it's because they are all like Russian and German names. And that's the case here in New Market. For example, the leader of the Union Army here was Sigel, S-I-G-E-L, and he was born in Germany, and he was a revolutionary in Germany, and he came here, and Lincoln loved those kind of guys. But there's one historical marker talked about how a lot of the Union soldiers were led by a bunch of former revolutionaries from Germany. And they're coming down here to the Shenandoah to attack multi-generational Americans, Southern Americans. Now make a transition over here. There's a historical sign. Now this historical sign is a little bit different than the others because it actually speaks about the monument. But as you walk down this way, there are other historical markers talking about the battle that took place, because the battle took place right here. In fact, a lot of the battle took place right where the interstate is in the distance. In fact, originally I was told that they had planned on putting the interstate right through this field, right smack in the middle of the battlefield. But there was a lot of pushback, a lot of pressure. They barely narrowly escaped moving the interstate that direction a little further back over. It's still part of the battlefield. The battlefield still is part of that. But at least it's not right through this field. But as you walk up here, you'll see these historical signs, and they talk about the battle that took place here in New Market. And in fact, the one here right at the end of this fence is one that talked about there was a cannon shell that landed right there and instantly killed 3 VMI cadets right here at the end by that tree. And just talk about all the death that took place around here. Now, so that's what makes this one different, because this one is more about the little more of the background of this, not as much. I could have gone more detail about the time frame, about the different memorials and monuments that were removed, but you see right here, says right here, the monument in front of Albemarle County Courthouse in 1909, shortly after its dedication. So here's what it looked like. This is what it used to look like in front of the county courthouse, and of course it's there now. So reading this, the monument in front of you was originally erected in front of the Albemarle County Courthouse in Charlottesville, Virginia in 1909. The monument was paid for by the United Daughters Confederacy, Albemarle County, and the city of Charlottesville. The bronze soldier on top, known as At Ready, was purchased from a foundry that mass-produced Confederate monuments in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So you can see the stance of At Ready. In 2020, during the nationwide debates and controversies over Confederate monuments, the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors voted to remove the monument and cannon. The Shenandoah Valley Battlefield's National Historic District agreed to accept ownership of the monument with the intent of placing it on one of its battlefield sites where Virginians played a major role. After much consideration, the National Historic District chose the New Market Battlefield as the new home for what is now the Virginia Monument. It stands here in memory of the sons of Virginia who fought across the fields at New Market on May 13th through 15th, 1864. Many of whom advanced and fought across the very grounds on which you and this monument now stand. And here's another listing of some of the names of those who are involved. Clea and I just talked about John Eccles, the grave that I just went to his gravesite today. Also Inbun, I've been to his gravesite as well. The Brigadier Wharton's brigade. You see the Augusta Reserves, VMI, total engaged 5,000, killed 39, wounded 495, missing 13. And thank you to those who helped re-erect it. Re-erecting this monument was made possible in part by the generosity of these folks. So thank you to those who did that. Now I am a fan of Shenandoah Valley Preservation Trust. I'm a fan of, these any preservation trust that doesn't go woke, council culture. Before I mention that, just finishing up my thought about the road running on the edge of the battlefield, it reminds me a lot of the Battle of Salem Church over there on the outskirts of Fredericksburg, where as you drive through there right now, that the road runs right through the middle of the central part of the battlefield, where many, many were killed, and hardly anybody knows about it. But the only memorials that are actually over there really are Union monuments. It's a large, like Pennsylvania monument in New Jersey. But I appreciate the preservation societies that try to preserve these lands, so I'm a supporter, and I will try to be as long as they don't go too extremely woke. So one of the things I like about this Shenandoah Valley is this is not the only kind of memorial that they now have stewardship and have ownership of. The other prominent one was the one that used to be in Easton, Maryland, the Talbot Boys. I encourage you to read that. The beautiful memorial to the Talbot Boys, basically the young men from Talbot County. They're in Maryland. There was a memorial in front of the courthouse. I went out to see it a couple times. I took some drone video of it a while back. And when the county, the locals, they had a couple votes. Every time the locals voted to keep it in place, they wanted to keep their war memorial to the Talbot Boys. But the county board, they didn't care. Even after a couple votes, even when they knew what the locals wanted, they voted against their wishes and they voted to remove it. And so what they did is they relocated it. Thankfully gave ownership to the Shenandoah Valley Battlefield Foundation, which owns this land and owns this monument. And they moved it out to Cross Keys Battlefield. Now that's another battle that took place. So down this way, I could probably get there in about 25 minutes, maybe half an hour's drive. It's where Stonewall Jackson had a campaign and a battle that took place out there. It's in a kind of a remote place. You kind of got to know where to look for it, but it is a nice, solemn, quiet farm kind of setting in the Shenandoah Valley. And at least it's protected out there. Very few people see it anymore. It should have never been removed, but at least it's been preserved. So Shenandoah Valley Battlefield Trust owns that one. They also own the one that's over in Winchester. There in Winchester, there's a nice little walkway. It used to be a street, and they turned it into a pedestrian kind of walkway, and they turned the streets into brick, and there's just like a place where people walk. Well, the old courthouse is there. Now the Shenandoah Valley, they bought that old courthouse. They turned it into a museum, and there was a Confederate monument right in front of the old courthouse. And a lot of the woke leftists question, they assume that the city or the county owns it, but they don't. The Shenandoah Valley does, and they have kept it there. It's a beautiful memorial that's there in Winchester, and so they own that one too. They own several museums, like this one over here. I encourage you to go to that one. It's awesome. There's some great portraits in there and some great displays. It's closed today, unfortunately. I was a little concerned because last time I was there, they were flying the 1st National and 3rd National, and they did have some accurate Confederate flags, Southern flags, and I did not see those this time. All I saw was some other non-Southern flags. So I'll call them out if they keep doing that. but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt in the meantime. But also, they own battlefields like up there in the first battle, second, and third battle of Winchester, and they dedicated a Confederate memorial up there to Alabama. It's just a memorial. So anyway, that's why I'm a big fan of the Shenandoah Valley Preservation Trust. We'll continue to support them as long as they don't go too crazy or woke. But they're the ones who took this. They actually, incidentally, happen to own the one over in Virginia Beach that I just saw barely a month ago. And it's kind of interesting because most of all their projects are here in the Shenandoah Valley here on the west side of Virginia. But they actually own that one way over there on the far southeast corner of Virginia because they needed some help. So they own that Confederate memorial over there in Virginia Beach. It was placed out there in a rural area. I went to see it. They're slowly getting it better. So they own the monument, but they don't own the land. It's owned privately. The landowner there and the SEV and others have rights to it. So that should be protected for a long time, but it's out of the way and very, very few people have seen it or even know where it's at. But I went to go see it recently and they plan on dedicating that one later this year. Some other memorials, like the one in Surrey, Virginia, it was just one SEV. It fell in the lap of just one SEV camp. That's it. And it's just a few guys slowly but surely putting this monument together. And they've been working on it, putting the monument together, re-erecting it over the course of 2 years. It just takes a lot of time. So I just wanted to share this with you. Once again, this scene here in the Shenandoah Valley, right along I-81, right along I-64. There's a sign down here. I don't know if you can see it very well. Basically, it says New Market Battlefield, Virginia Military Institute, and the Shenandoah Valley. So once again, if you come out here, definitely worth stopping at both museums. If I had a choice, I'd rather go to the Shenandoah Valley Battlefield Trust because they're not as woke. I was really concerned. Now, I love VMI because they got this Stonewall Jackson statue out in front, and they got some beautiful stained glass work, and they've got some neat monuments, but they started just going off the rails in some of those displays. So I'd go check them out, but they closed. Here it is. 6:09. They closed at 5 o'clock today, so I missed that. I love coming out here to the Shenandoah Valley area. Started the day in Stanton. It's just in Lynchburg before that. I was at Lee Jackson Park yesterday. It was a great day at Lee Jackson Park, right just on the north side of Lexington. They had a great ceremony over there. I was at Amherst, Virginia right before that. Make the most of the day. And I plan on going to 3 Confederate memorial services tomorrow, including Fredericksburg Confederate Cemetery, where there is actually about 3,500 Southern Americans buried there in that Confederate cemetery. 2,000 are buried in a mass grave right underneath the Confederate memorial. The lucky ones, about the 1,500 of them, have actually headstones, and they're slowly but surely trying to replace those. It's very similar to the cemetery I just went to today in Stanton, Virginia, which is only about, maybe 45 minutes south of here, down this road, get to Stanton. That city used to have a nice Stonewall, used to have a nice hotel with a big Stonewall Jackson light-up sign at night. It was beautiful. They used to have a high school named after Robert E. Lee, but unfortunately got rid of that. They've had just too many carpetbaggers, too many Yankees move in to the area, and just the local culture. But the Confederate cemetery up there is beautiful. In that case, there's about 1,800 that are buried there, and nearly half are unknown. Almost all of them are in unmarked graves. So just leaving this with you today. Just wanted to give you an update of this one. That one of the monuments that was removed from Charlottesville, Virginia, in its current condition. Let's go up here and take a look at this one last time. It's like we've got a bit of a cloud front coming in right now. Yeah, there's some woke craziness that had happened as Yankees moved into these nice little beautiful towns in Dixie. But there has been some good news stories. For example, one of the good news stories is just out this way, not too far from here, is Stonewall Jackson High School and Ashby Lee Elementary School. Now, when the George Floyd thing kicked off, the school board broke all protocol. They broke the trust. They made a knee-jerk reaction. They instantly decided to rename the school without any public input at all. And they renamed and removed the names of Stonewall Jackson and Ashby Lee from the schools, and everybody was outraged. Ridiculous. They get the public's input for the littlest, tiniest thing, and then they change the name without any input because they know that people are opposed to it. And that's why the leftists will these days will say they don't want the public's input. They actually actively ask that these measures not be put on ballot measures or referendums. In fact, there was an attempt that just fell just a couple weeks ago here in Virginia, where there were some folks that said if you ever wanted to remove a memorial, at least put it up for a referendum. Let the public have a say. Let the people have a say. Let the majority rule. And the Democrats voted it down. They refused to let that bill pass. Well, here, that school, thankfully it just took one guy, grassroots effort, and he was insisting that whoever's going to be placed on the next school board, they're going to actually vet them out. Because usually you don't think you'd have to ask school boards if they're going to rename schools. But you kind of got to go that level these days. So he made sure that everybody that was replaced on the school board was going to rename the school back. It wasn't one of these cancel culture woke Yankees. And that's what happened. And they renamed the school back. And now the Stonewall Jackson High School has been restored just down beyond here. And also Ashby Lee should have never been changed. Egg on the face, mud in the face of those cancel culture woke who wanted to bypass all common decency and actually remove those. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get ready to finish this up. Leave me once again with these beautiful comments. Confederate soldiers, defenders of the rights of the states. Warriors, your valor, your devotion to duty, your fortitude under privations, teach us how to suffer and grow strong, lest we forget. Deo Vindice. All right, just wanted to pass this along to you, this update on this beautiful memorial. Huge loss for Charlottesville. They lost their heart and soul. Big win for this valley here. Definitely worth stopping by and seeing, paying your respects if you're ever around here in the Shenandoah Valley, here in New Market, Virginia. So take care, y'all. May God bless you. May God bless and save America. May God bless and save Dixie.